All right. Good evening, one and all, and welcome to another edition of the Georgetown Tea House. I'm here. I am Anansi. I'm with Tyrone and Cleon. Sister Marcel, she's going to be here, but in the chat most of the time as work duties beckon. Gentlemen, welcome to another evening at the tea house. Cleon, what tea are you having this evening?
Tonight I'm just having regular water. It's
Regular
good
water.
for your
Okay,
life.
okay.
Just as how the program is good for you every Monday. I know I wasn't here last week because I had other things going on. So I encourage you, if you're tuning in, to like, share, and subscribe. As water is to life, so is the tea house to your Monday.
All right, all right. Randy, welcome aboard. Welcome
Good
aboard.
evening, good evening. How are you guys?
Good, good, good. All
Thank
right,
you for having me,
we
man.
I just kind of realized we have a real interesting mix here. I mean, we're all Guyanese brothers, but one is in St. Lucia, one is in Jamaica, and one is back home.
Oh yes.
How are things back home, Randy?
Um,
And do you wish to be in either Trinidad and St. Lucia right now?
Guine is always the best, I can say. Apart from our little minor issues and so on that we have, but Guine is always the best. I've never been to St. Lucia nor
Jamaica.
Jamaica, but hopefully someday I am hoping to visit there. So I wouldn't be able to say what the atmosphere like is over there or whatever. Maybe
Mhm.
Tyrone and Cleon will be in a better position to do comparison um of back home and the various places that they are. So but good old Guyana is always good old Guyana.
Good old Guyana is always good old Guyana.
Always good
So,
old Guyana.
Cleon and Tyrone, do you guys miss Guyana?
Most definitely. I always tell people there's no place like Guyana to be in, and Guyana has a uniqueness that I don't
Oh
think you
yes.
can find any other part of this world, especially around, let's say, Christmas time. There is that uniqueness that in Ghana with Christmas time that begins from, I think it's the first week in September,
Mhm.
and it
Okay.
continues until maybe January month then. But
Yes,
Yes, you
yes.
yes, yes,
you
yes,
miss
yes,
Guyana for the Christmas.
yes. I miss
How
Guyana.
about you,
Guyana.
Cleon?
I honestly not really do miss Guyana per se, but I miss the people
Okay.
that I would have my daily interactions. And because there is now Facebook and WhatsApp, and I travel to the US and travel throughout the Caribbean where my friends are and
Mhm.
family, I really don't see to like I'm missing anything. What I do miss
Okay.
is some of the vegetables that we have a wider
Right,
variety
right.
of food. And like Tyrone rightly said, the Christmas atmosphere, as much as I've lived a lot in Trinidad, and Trinidad Christmas starts um, in October,
Mhm.
uh, and sometimes they have Christmas in June, it's not as what I am accustomed to. And I can't find good curry. I can't find no casserip. I mean, there's
Right.
curry here, but it's not like Indie Madras curry or Champion curry. Even
With the one with the
comparison
elephant on
between
the
those
back end.
two. Wouldn't go between those two comparisons because they're not sponsoring the show. But if you would like to, please contact
Mm,
us. Drop something in the chat,
Definitely.
and we will let you know how you can
definitely.
get to get more persons on your slot. But other than that,
Right.
I really I'm what I miss about home is the fact that I have so many persons that I've been to school with that I don't have connections with them on the media platforms.
Mhm.
But when I go to Guyana, I can be able to see them. That's because they choose not to be on social media for whatever reasons.
Right, right.
But other than that, I miss cheese roll. I miss a real good puri. Even though I cook,
Okay.
I am not saying that I can't make them, but I miss
Mhm.
There's something different about it being made home and you're enjoying it home. So when I go home, my tradition is I eat cheese roll every single morning for breakfast. I snack on like a puri or egg ball and sour at lunch, and I eat vegetables for dinner. I'm not interested in no chicken or KFC and all of that. No, because when I am home, I'm there to enjoy everything there is. And what is Ghana without good coconut water?
Right.
Yep.
All right. We've got another interesting program for you this evening. We're continuing our exploration of the unexplained. And this evening, we have Sister Noelline Baird-Lewis. She is the mother of Shel Summons, and Shel is a Georgetown Tea House fan. Whenever she can, she's always at the tea house. So we'll be hearing from Shel's mother shortly. In the meantime, please continue to like, share the broadcast. If you in the on our YouTube channel, please click that subscribe button, and we'll be back with you shortly.
Examine any profound event in the Bible or in the history of Christianity, and one is sure to recognize the consistently pivotal role of conversational interactions. We see this at play in Genesis, the first book, where through a series of conversations we witness the fall of our species and the expulsion from the Garden of Eden. The conversation between God and man, the conversation between man and woman, the conversation between the woman and the devil, and so on. At the Georgetown Tea House, we know the great importance and pivotal role that conversations often play in our lives on this earth. And thus, we will seek to engage in the types of conversations that are insightful, stimulating, and thought-provoking. And yes, occasionally, a trifle boring. Our hope is that with each visit to the tea house, we can become better aware of who we are, of our relationship with God, and where we stand with each other and the rest of humankind. And yes, through it all, there will be music. For music, it had been written, is the food of love, and God is love. Join us every Monday evening on Facebook and YouTube Live for Conversations at the Georgetown Tea House, a Gospel Side of Me production. Please, do bring along a cup of tea or a glass of your favorite juice.
All right, good evening, and once again, welcome to the Georgetown Tea House. Before the intro, we were talking about things that folks miss at home, and I see from home, Alicia Curry saying, "I miss pastries, Chinese, German, puri, white pudding, etc., etc., etc." Karen Wells is saying she missed the drama of the people in the streets. What about you, Tyrone? You miss listening in on a little views and things?
Sometimes you see that sometimes that's you're more in devotion. But I mean, I miss the egg ball. I think some time ago I made some egg ball and I just took a picture and sent it to some friends. But I miss the egg ball and the pone and the these kind of things you get from school, Randy.
Oh yes.
Vendors in the school front.
Yep.
And then you had these at football session, these Rastamen used to sell some
Channel.
Korean, some channel mix up
Corn.
Yeah.
Just
wrap everything nice in the puri there.
Yes.
Yeah, man.
Nothing quite like the Guyanese cuisine, eh? Nothing.
And let me tell some of my friends that when you go to Guyana, you can go to any cook shop and get 5 different menus on any given day.
Definitely.
On any given
day.
On any given day. There's some places that you just have one menu On Tuesday, that's one menu. On Wednesday, one menu. But in Ghana, you get like 5 different menus on different
Okay,
days.
right, right. All right, we're exploring the unexplained, and we have a story here from Sister Noelline Baird-Lewis, and the mother of its Georgetown Tea House fan, Shel Summons. Uh, and let's get started.
We have another really, really good story for you this evening. I have my sister Shel's mom here with us tonight, and she's going to tell us a little about herself, and she's going to delve right in. So go right ahead, Auntie.
Well, my name is Noelline Baird. I was born a Baird. We from Buxton Front. There's where we had the family house. I was one of 10 siblings,
Oh, wow.
5 boys and 5 girls. I was number 6 of 10.
Okay. Wow, a big
So,
family.
yes, we lived at Buxton Front, close to the burial ground up at Buxton Front. They said that had its own problem
Right, right.
because
I'm familiar with it.
you couldn't, they saying you couldn't point in the burial ground, no, you got to bite your finger
Mm-hmm.
or your finger will rot off. So
Right.
those were one of the early things that you remember that you couldn't do. You can't point in the burial ground. Well, I never even used to look in the burial ground because it always scared me. Anyway,
Wow.
I went to Buxton Congregational School, Road Common Entrance, and then I went to Buxton Government Secondary, which we used to call Center School.
Okay.
Don't point to the burying ground. I mean, what, Tyrone, what do you think, as you look at it all, what scares us? What could scare us about a burial ground? Because we know whatever is there is not alive. It should not be able to affect us. So where do you think the fear comes from?
I think the fear came from person's perception and what we were taught and our beliefs. And sometimes because we believe these things to be true, therefore we act it out. That
Mm,
it will happen, it will come to pass. And I remember reading a text from the book of Job that says, the thing that you fear the most is the very thing that will come upon you. So the belief is what drives the fear. If you want your fingers, obviously you will bite them when you
mhm.
point into the burial ground. So it was a lot of superstitious belief that was basically handed down. And the sad thing is that none of us as young children maybe ever thought of questioning the
Right.
belief, but we just accepted it as, you know what? Yeah, the seniors know, they know well, they know better than us, so we just accepted it as it is. So I guess that's one of the fear that came. Well, I never really bit my fingers. I never really threw any leaf behind my back after 6 o'clock.
Okay. Okay. And you're not with that.
No, I'm
Uh,
not with that.
Cle- Cleon, as you are today now, uh, would you be okay, say around midnight, with walking through Le Repentir Cemetery all by yourself?
No, for the fact that in your subconscious you will still have that notion that says it's not the right thing, because nobody who in their sane mind would be want to going through the cemetery at that hour of the night, even though there are people who traverse that stretch. um and I have family who live on the island. That's where my mother
Mm,
is from. But I would never walk that area at night. I would more walk the back, because I'm not hoping that I will see anything. Not that I believe that I will see something, but what you don't want to see, you don't try to entertain, in my opinion.
Well,
So
what about you, Randy? Would you risk walking to a burial ground, a burial ground in the heat of the night?
If I'm challenged to, I will. Um, I like Tyrone. Well, I can't say like Tyrone, but growing up, I believe the senior folks apart from superstitious belief and this, they used to do certain things or say certain things to keep you out of certain areas. So
Okay.
they would tell you
Mm-hmm.
being wrong. But I always grew up hearing about if you point, you bite your fingers. I did it all. I threw a leaf. I came through the door with my back. Um, the last person coming and all of these things. But
Mm-hmm.
as it relates to being wrong, my grandmother, I grew up running behind sheep, and my grandmother, that was our job, look after garden and look after the animals and so on. And so I can remember sometimes I came home and you play football, you're tired, you don't get no time but the sheep. And you go on and
Very
sleep.
good. Mm-hmm.
And so my grandmother, she never used to say anything, She used to ensure that you get your dinner, your bed and everything. You go and you spend your 2 hour around the table with your books. And at 9 o'clock when you hear the announcement, soon you're gone inside. And about 10 and them time when you're in a deep sleep, then is when she wake you up and ask you where's the sheep. And you're like the sheep in the pen, you know? And she said
Very
me,
good.
show me. And you so tired, there's your sweet sleep. And when you go no sheep, you gotta go and get the sheep. And guess where the sheep used to be?
In the
In the
background.
burial ground. In the burial ground. And it was an experience going there. I never pray so much. I praying going into the burial ground. And when them sheep come out, and I mean it's praying all the time. And
Right,
and
right.
and so I mean, I don't really have a problem going into the burial ground. Basically, I'm not afraid of the dead. It's more so of the living, because the burial ground now these days, you have living people that's being and so on. You know what I mean? So
Waiting
going
to
in
rob you
there,
or something.
wait, right, exactly. So that's what you have to be afraid of. But it's not anything supernatural that I'm afraid of going in
Mm-hmm.
there. So I really don't have a problem. If I'm challenged to, I would. But you know what I mean? I'm not afraid.
Okay, great. All right. We're talking to the mom of Shel Summons, who has an experience with Old High, and here it comes.
But I got married in 1975 and I went to live at Bedford Walkton, way
Okay.
down at the back of Communal Road. And there I spent the next 4 years before moving to a house I built at Melanie Damashana.
Okay.
So while at Bedford Walkton, I was just a couple lots away from the cane field, and I had my first child there. And this is a child who made me really well experience old hive.
Right.
Because I think this is the main thing you want to know about, right? The
Yes,
old
that
hive.
and other stuff. Yes, whatever you remember. Yes.
No, I came home from the hospital with the baby. She was less than 2 weeks old. And
Right.
my mother came to visit the following day. She did that with all my kids. When I got home from hospital one day, she would be there the next day just to see this baby and probably hold this baby and whatever. So
Right.
she came and she brought a bottle with some substance inside. The substance inside was like black
Uh
and
huh.
it had some pieces of wood, different things inside. And she told me, use this and rub it on the baby. And I did. I didn't ask any questions, I just did.
Right. So
But
it's your
within
mother. So yeah.
my mother brought that. They call it oleg oil. Oleg oil.
Okay.
So I kept it in this bottle. And after bathing baby and whatever, then you rub the baby down from head to toe with this thing and baby should be okay. But less than a week later, the baby got sick. Well, I don't know what this child was only crying and crying and crying. And she sounded like an old woman crying, just crying
Wow.
all day and wouldn't eat or anything. Well, my sister was a nurse, Audrey. She used to be the matron at Georgetown Hospital. She retired not so long ago. She came to spend a couple days with me and she observed this baby crying. And we decided to go to the hospital with the baby. When we went, the first thing the doctor asked, did this child have a fall? So I said, no. How can this baby fall? And this is a baby, just a couple weeks, the baby can hardly even turn. Wherever you put
Right.
it to lie down, there's where it stays.
Right.
So he said, well, this baby is in pain. He couldn't touch her stomach or so he couldn't touch her belly. The crying got worse. So he gave us some medicine and we left. But the baby never had the medicine. The following day, I went to stay overnight at my mother in Buxton, and I told her what was happening to the baby. She said, "We're going to Mommy Fifi." Mommy Fifi was the village doctor.
I'm
She
familiar with
said,
her. Yes.
she said, "We're going to Mommy Fifi." So we left and we walked from Buxton Front all the way over the line way down to the back there at Mommy Fifi. And when we walked in the yard, she came to the top of the steps and she said, "Come quick, come quick. Next machine that would have killed she, you know." And so I went up the steps to the baby and she took the baby from me. And she went inside and right away she started her ministrations. I know she had a basin with water and she had some eggs inside this basin and she had some other stuff that she was using. And she give this baby a bath and she doing something with these eggs in this water. And then after she dried the baby up, she anointed this baby from head to toe with this whatever she had. And then she told me, "Don't worry, everything is going to be all right." I went back home with the baby. There wasn't another song no crying from this baby. The baby no pain, anything, and the baby was drinking a bottle and nursing after then. So that was one very profound experience. Well, I didn't wait for anything to happen to any other child. The next four kids, because I have five of them, they all went to Mommy Fifi as soon as they were just over a week old, before they're 2 weeks old. They went to Mommy Fifi and she did the same thing. So I never had another problem. But
All right. Mama Fifi. Now, Randy and Tyrone, know you guys are from up the coast there, and you would have both heard about Mama Fifi, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. What did you hear, Randy? What's what's your whole
Um,
picture of Mama Fifi and what she does?
well, most of the things that people are saying, she uses bush to clean you out and all of these things. I met her daughter. Her daughter is carrying on what she started, because I think Mama
Right.
Fifi died. She died at a hundred
Right.
years
Yeah.
old.
Yeah.
And her daughter, so not too long ago, when I came back, I went, or before I went on vacation, I think, either then or when I came back, I can't remember exactly. I went up there. I went by her to get some cold medicine, because you say that you want to clean out. I always say, man, I need to go to one of these bush doctors and get a concoction to clean out and so on. But I never get the courage to do it,
Okay.
because
Okay.
when people will tell me whatever she gave you, how you'll be throwing up, it's like you're vomiting your soul case out and all of these things. I never get the courage to send on me. So I went by her and I said, man, look, I need a clean out. And she tell me what is clean out and what not gonna do and all of these things. I said, nah. I say, here what happened? Give me this cold medicine. She gave me this cold medicine with the tamarind syrup and I think some peppermint oil and all of these things. I stomached that. I drank it as much as possible, but I never really got the clean out. I have friends and so on who would have experienced those things with them, you know. So but that's what I heard about her doing her work. What they call vomit, they clean you out. Whatever she gives you to inhale and all of these things. I hear lots of story about the aftermath of taking her medicine, how good it is, but what you will have to go through
Go through.
um, after taking it and all of these things. My friend came from the US the other day and he went there and he said he wanted the clean out. Well, he was brave enough, so he took it. So he went home and he took it. So I called in the night time and I say, one body you use the thing how what going on? He said, right now I did me bar. You may sit down on the floor naked as I born. I can't even go outside. I had me pores open and he just telling me experience and he feeling like you know what I mean? But I mean he survived, he's back in the States right now and so on. But his experience and many others, it wasn't nice, so I haven't mustered the strength to go and actually take the full dose. I just took for the cold. But I've heard many stories about Mama Fifi and all the things that people are saying and so on. I've heard about it. I don't know
Right.
how you know what I mean, but that was my
Mm.
experience. But
That
I'm
was your
familiar with
experience.
her daughter now, right? I'm familiar with her daughter now. That's doing the work.
Okay, okay. What about you? What's your vision of Mama Fifi Tyrone?
I didn't hear much about her. No, I just heard that she used to like do her stuff. I think that Randy said,
Mm-hmm.
and heal people and the rest of it. But I was never really fascinated by it. I was never really interested in going anywhere to
Okay.
find out anything. So never really looked into it. I just heard that these are the things
That that that.
that she would do and so on. Yeah. But in terms of going
Okay.
there, interest no, was never
Okay.
interested.
Never interested.
Mm.
Cleon, you would have heard about. You have any Mama Fifi stories that you would have heard?
No, not that I've been to her, but I heard persons try to make it out that it's like more of an occultic kind of practices. But from what I have investigated and I have seen persons, it's basically like if you're going to one of these bush doctors, that somebody
Right.
who believes in this medicine, if you mix this and this is what is going to happen. And if you have coal on your chest, they're able to give you XYZ bushes to
Right.
drink and it will bring up the coal. So I did not see her or would have perceived her to be like an occultic type of a person. I just saw it
Mm-hmm.
as a nat like a herbalist, but not
Right.
on the weed spectrum.
Not on the weed section. All right, folks. This you're at the Georgetown Tea House. Um, Please continue to like and to share the broadcast. We're talking about Christianity and the unexplained. Gentlemen, we're going to take a short break, and when we get back, the question I want us to address is when should one approach a Christian medical practitioner as against a traditional medicinal person? All right? I want you to think about that for a few moments, and we'll be back. Okay, we know parents, parents will most often do whatever they feel they must do in order to save a child's life, uh, cure an ailment. And, that was the case with Shel Summons' mom. Now, Randy, your father, you have a kid, um, your kid is ill, and you go to the doctor says, they can't figure out what's going on. As a Christian person, do you continue to pursue modern medicine? And if someone says to you, Randy, um, you know, Mama Fifi daughter, she can heal this person. Would you be hesitant going there because of your Christianity, or will you be thinking about your child first and foremost and head down? What kind of calculations would go through your mind?
First of all, I will seek the real professional doctors, the medical doctors who would have studied the human body and all of these things, right?
Hmm.
And like
Hmm.
and if they cannot come up with anything, then I may be tempted to try herbal. I'm a like a herbal doctor. There's a difference between me, these horrible, some of the horrible doctors, and the actual obeah men or spiritual wherever people. I would not go to them, right? But I wouldn't mind trying herbal treatment, right? I wouldn't mind trying herbal treatment. There's nothing wrong with herbal treatment. The only thing wrong with herbal treatment is that they don't come in dose, right? It don't come in doses. When you're drinking something, it's a whole pot or a whole bottle or something. You know what I mean? When you're boiling, it's a whole. They don't. It doesn't come in how much leaf you boil and how much water and all of these things. So that's, I mean,
and
that's
two
the
or
thing, is
three
it?
drink 2 tablespoons twice a day and that kind of thing.
But then even if they tell you to drink 2 tablespoons twice a day or whatever, when it's boiling, it there's no ratio to leaf and stem and so on to water to get. You understand what I'm saying? So as you use it, you will probably have to use it in certain moderation to get it to work. But I mean, for me, there is healing in the herb, I mean, there's herbal treatment. So I wouldn't have a problem going there, but of course I will seek the medical doctor because I want to know what's the problem with my child. But I definitely wouldn't go to obeah man or woman or these spiritual leaders who will be the hell out to you and all these nonsense. Nah, they wouldn't get me to go there.
Okay. Tyrone, would you be okay with going to, after seeking, the Christian medical practitioner, or the other medical practitioner, nothing is working. Would you be okay with going to a traditional herbalist such as Mama Fifi's daughter?
I would say no, not of the bat. And I'll tell you why. I believe in the wisdom that God has given to human beings. And I believe the wisdom to heal basically comes from God. So if the medical practitioners, the trained medical practitioners, are not able to tell me what happened to my child, how will an untrained and uncertified herbalist tell me what happened to my child? All right? Because these medical professionals, they're certified, they're trained, and the way the human being, the nature of the human being is that there are certain illnesses that nobody can, that's novel, that's new, that nobody can find out. And one of the things that I have with individuals and the herbalists is that a lot of people believe that once they hear herb, that there is no side effects or allergic reaction. But let me say this here. I have friends who are allergic to pineapple. If they eat pineapple, some people are allergic to nuts. And all those are vegetables, they're greens that the vegetarians eat. So to go blindly to herbalists, not knowing what they're using and the effects that what they're using will have on my child's body, then I have a serious issue with that. I will first consult the creator of human beings. And he will basically guide me as to where to go. Because a lot of people call themselves herbalists and they just pull grass or anything from any part of the tree and just boil it and give it to you, and then call themselves herbalists. And because it worked for one person or two persons, then they think it worked for everybody. But then, is there a scientific study about this particular herb that is used, that's documented, that can be used in the general population? That's some of the issues I have in going to a herbalist. But medical doctor first, I'll consult God and let God guide me thereafter.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Tyrone. Cleon, what's your take? Would you take your kid to a traditional herbalist?
Yes, and my reason for it is this. There are some things that we would have grown up and seen as tradition, and I will dare say the church sometimes calls it evil, without having full understanding of how the colonizers would have tried to create certain things to call everything evil that is not of their doings. Like both presenters would have said, you're not going to someone blindly. And like I said, over the years, I have known persons going to the Mama Fifi people for bush medicine. I don't know if they were going for other engagements. I was never there. I know my family still continues to buy the bush medicine from them because they live in the States, and during the winter time, most times they will have a sip of whatever stuff that is mixed together just to keep away cold and all of that from them. But I'm not going to say because I'm a Christian, I don't trust that God can use somebody who is of natural medicine. And it doesn't mean that because someone has been trained academically to be a doctor means that they are going to know exactly what the problem is, because sometimes the doctors say, well, we will have to try this and see how it is going to work. Why we can't say the same thing with the person who is giving you the medicine, who is not a trained doctor? So if you're a trained doctor and you're going to tell me, we're not so sure if this is the complaint, but we have to try this for you to think, and then after a couple of days, if you have a allergic reaction to it, then we'll have to switch you to something else. So the pros and the cons are like there. You will have to decide what is best for you and your child.
Okay, thank you. Now, Tyrone, Cleon just, part of what he said is that he thinks that, God can sometimes guide individuals to be natural healers. What how would you respond to that?
I am not doubting that God has the wisdom in everything. I can remember somebody was sick. One of the guys, kings was sick, and then one of the prophets said to them, "Put a fig. I think get a fig and put it on the person's sore, and it heal the person." So God can use that. That's what I'm saying. I will consult with God to know whoever to go to. And in the case of the person who gave me the testimony, I would not go to a herbalist to rub bush on my child to protect my child from Olay. If that's the case, the best protection for my child from that kind of evil is God Himself. And
Right.
that's what I'm talking about. Not to go to somebody who will rub something on my child's skin to protect him from Olay. So that's the point. That's the point I'm making. The situation will determine how we approach and where we go to. Persons normally hang a horseshoe over the door as a means of protection. Some person will give the child a ring to wear as a means of protection. So the protection there, it has this kind of supernatural element to it, which is not God. And that's what I'm basically talking against. For me, I would not do that to my child.
Okay. But even in the instance where, like we were saying earlier, you would have gone to the trained, certified doctors, and they're unable to do anything. And don't you think that maybe sometimes your own prayer, like you say, you reach out to God, that your own prayer could guide you to someone like a Mama Fifi,
I would know where God will lead me.
right? Or
I'm not too sure God will lead me there.
but if He leaves you there, we're gonna say
Wherever God
just,
leads, I will go.
uh-huh.
That wherever God leads, I will go. But I'm not too sure God will basically lead me there, because
Not
He
too.
said to me, "Trust Him." And we have tremendous stories where persons from the medical practitioners, they said they can't do anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
And individuals just went on their knees and they agonized with God. They didn't have to go to Mama Fifi. They didn't have to go to any herbalists. They didn't have to go to anybody. They just get on their knees, agonize with God, and what the doctors couldn't find cure for, they were healed.
Okay. Randy, as you listen to Tyrone, Tyrone seems to be very skeptical about this, this whole natural healing kind of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So as you were listening to him though, and as a parent yourself, how would you respond?
Like I said before, when it comes to spiritual things and whatever, I would not go to those spiritualist persons or whatever. But when it comes to like using herbal treatment for a specific illness or something, I wouldn't mind trying it. I wouldn't mind trying it because, like I said, they are and Tyrone concern was about persons studying these herbs and all of these things. They are documented stuff about these herbs. People know what is good for what and whatever. I read about this guy, Dr. Sebi, that died, and how he used herb to cure AIDS and cancer and all of these things. And some of his findings are documented, and how he delivered himself and explained himself, it sounds reasonable and rational and very intelligent, because he was making a comparison about cancer, talking about what radiation and chemo does to the cell. It kills the bad and the good cells, but with this herbal treatment, it actually cleans the cell. So there is healing in the herbs, and I wouldn't mind going to somebody who is knowledgeable about these herbs to probably give a concoction to probably cure something, maybe a septic, maybe a severe cold. I remember when I was young, when I was much younger, I had a cold that was so severe, very severe. My grandmother tried everything, and you know what she gave me to get rid of it? I had to drink a half teacup of coconut oil.
Wow.
It was the most horrible thing that I've ever had. Half
Wow.
teacup of coconut oil, drank it. This cold was so severe, when I speak to people, you could have smelled it. That's how bad it was. And she tried everything and nothing worked. It grew worse. And when she gave me this half teacup of coconut oil, I started passing the cold. In a couple of days, I was A-okay. So, I mean, you understand me, knowing what to do with these herbs and with the natural things that given, if there are persons who know what to do with them, I wouldn't mind trying them. But when it comes to these supernatural stuff and I walk in it, no, I don't believe in that. I believe in prayer, believe in God, and I will pray. Of course, I'll go to the regular doctors and so on to know what's up with my child, because they can run tests and all of these things. They would have studied the human body. So I will go to them to find out. I know true healing comes from God, but I wouldn't mind trying herbal treatment also. But with the necromancy stuff and all of these things, nah, I wouldn't dangle in that. I don't believe in that, period. So that's my take on that. That's my position on that.
All right, good. Cleon, you'd wanted to say something earlier?
I know Guyanese people, when they boil in the porridge, they put the capodula bark and the granny backbone and the sarsaparilla, and they're all different things that men like to drink. I hope our friend Tyrone hasn't had any of those, because you had herbal medicine before. Just making it liven up the show. But for me, I remember the Bible story of the man who was sent to dip in the river that was not considered to be even clean, to get rid of whatever he was dealing with. And it brings me back to the point that God indeed uses the foolish things of the world to confound those who are wise. I don't want to say that we're using the scripture vainly and out of context. However, I do agree with Tyrone 100%. I am not going to take my child to nobody to rub them down in curry powder or anything to say that that is going to keep away the spirits, because I can't see the spirits, and just as how I can't see them, you can't see them either. But if you're going to give me a treatment that is going to bring about a change in the skin condition, or that which is the individual is dealing with internally, let's go 100% with it, because sometimes the medical doctors will say to you, you may just have to try a herbal specialist. And there are persons who are qualified as herbal specialists that are around. But I still do believe that they are the old traditions of yesteryear that are still pertinent to our survival as humans. And again, I say colonizers because the Africans would have brought certain traditions with them that we still believe is so devilish. There's, when it comes to the herbal medicine that they make for, cleansing of the body and those stuff, I have no problem endorsing it. But when it comes to the practices that will be involving, oh, you're cutting a fowl and you're doing this and you're sprinkling this and sprinkling that, the only thing I sprinkle in is the blood of Jesus. And the only thing I'm going to take sprinkle from is water in the shower, nothing else.
Thanks for that, Tyrone. Now, Randy, you brought up a very, when you spoke about coconut oil, now you took my mind to another point. And I want Tyrone to consider this now. Growing up, some of us, would use coconut oil to rub our feet and thing. And for those who did use a lot of coconut oil back in the day, whether to rub on the hair and thing, as we know, most people used to laugh them, or tantalize or tease them in some way, Cause your head or your foot very, very shine when the coconut oil go on it. But fast forward now, and I think if you go in a pharmacy or a beauty store and you look at most creams and most soaps, they they have coconut as one of the prime ingredients. Now, that would have been a case of science grabbing hold of traditional medicine and using it, you know, to fit whatever they think. And Tyrone, I think you would admit that okay, Christianity started about 2,000 years ago, and prior to that, it was traditional medicine. There would have been a transition period, one, and two, there would have been a lot of learning um, from from the traditional doctors, and modern medicine would have used that and then maybe refine it and tweaked it a little and things, but they it would have begun with what they would have seen of the traditional doctors, and then basically what they do is repackage it. Right. So how would you address that?
Yes, let me respond to that. Yes, before Christ and in the olden days, they would have had these traditional medicine and so on. I am not doubting herbal medicine. I am not saying, because I believe that when God created, he placed certain things in the herbal aspect of his creation to deal with the human body.
Mhm.
Yes, I believe that. However, I believe if the foundation is not solid, is compromised, then the whole building is compromised. And if we look at the children of Israel and the other nations around use traditional medicine, but they had a ritual to go with it. And I'm speaking to the ritual aspect of the traditional medicine. And I've not researched it, so I'm just saying it off my head.
Mhm.
I would want to think that there are some herbalists who are also into this spiritual aspect of the medicine. They're into this ritual aspect of it. And so I would not just pick myself up and go to find a herbalist who is into this whole ritual aspect, as Cleon would have alluded to, that you have to go through this ritualistic something, that you have to repeat these kind of words over and over and over. As you drink this medicine, you have to repeat this and you have to repeat that, and so on.
Mhm.
So in a sense, it seemed as though for some it is disguised. It is disguised spiritism, so to speak.
Okay.
But the naturalist who is pure, yes, I can, as I said before, when I consult with God, and God will direct me where to go. I don't want to be answering the question, is there not a God in Israel who can heal and who can do all of this? So yes, before Christianity came into existence, they had all of these things. And I hear a lot of people talk about African, I don't know about African culture,
Mhm.
but it seemed to me, and I stand corrected, it seemed to me that a lot of the culture was steeped in um the spiritualism kind of thing. And so when you go to the herbalist, you have to carry this and you have to repeat this song and you have to put this under your bed and you have to drink this at 2 o'clock in the morning and wake up at. So that is the aspect I'm dealing with. If I go when I go to God and God says to me, go to a herbalist, it is a herbalist who is not covering spiritism in the name of being a naturalist.
Okay. Just a quick note with regard to the traditional African approach. Um, in westernized culture, when you go to a doctor, you're gonna say, my elbow hurting, I feeling this tingle at my knee,
Mm-hmm.
and I understand it. And Western medicine will try to give you something to deal with the elbow or the knee.
Yeah.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
The African traditional approach, uh, they don't just deal directly with just healing the elbow or or the knee, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
it's a more wholesome thing. Hence their approach,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's body, mind, and everything they will address simultaneously,
Mm-hmm.
right? As against just just
Just that
addressing that
specific part.
very part that So
And I know
that's the
I
approach.
know the
So
Chinese are good at.
that's where that comes from.
I know the Chinese are good at traditional medicine too.
Right, right, right.
Because I mean I've done a little research. I've done a course at UE on science, medicine, and technology.
Hmm.
And there's some of these therapies and some of these traditional treatment.
Hmm.
The Chinese are basically good at it.
Right, 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 right,
So there
right.
is, I believe there is a place for it. But as I said before, I'm very careful
Hmm.
of who I approach or who I would go to. I will have to depend on God to give me direction.
Okay. It brings me to a question now. When we speak of healing, it's primarily looking at the human condition. It's primarily one of three things, or a mixture of three. We either seek healing for the body, the mind, or the spirit. All right, either the body, the mind, or the spirit. Now, I want us to be very frank here up front, and think about that for a minute, and ask ourselves which of these, or if all of them, would Christianity and our Christian beliefs really truly address, right? In terms of healing, can Christianity heal you in terms of a bodily ailment? Can Christianity heal you in terms of mental issue, um, or the spirit? Just take a moment to think about that, and we'll be back. Cleon, I'll come to you first. Christianity and those three areas that I pointed out, the body, the mind, the spirit. In your view, can your belief system address the healing of all three
Yes, it
conclusively?
can. Yes, it can.
Okay, break it
Because
down for us.
if one's mind is transformed, then one's body rather, would be in alignment, and their spirit begin to function as it should.
Mm-hmm.
So if one's mind is not in the right place, one's body wouldn't be able to function as it should. So there are times, like we started off talking about, the subconscious of us being told these things will happen, and there is no factual evidence to say that if you point at these tombs in the burial ground,
Mm-hmm.
that your finger is going to rotten off. But because you have been taught that over and over for whatever period, your mind says to you that it is going to happen, and your body reacts in a different way, which says, oh, let me bite all 10 of my fingers. And your spirit is not even in sync with what is happening, because it doesn't even make any sense after a while. So I think if one's mind is in the right place, the body is going to function as it should, and your spirit is going to be at peace. And I do believe within the spectrum of Christianity that one can find healing for their mind, for their body, and their soul. Because the soul ultimately belongs to God.
Right. Well, I think most of us would agree that, spiritually, or as you say, the soul, definitely that, the religion, the belief system can address that. Tyrone, let's look hard at the physical aspect. I figure you may likely have been one. Oh, Tyrone is gone. All right, I'll put the question to you. Oh no, Tyrone is still there. Cleon is gone. Yes, Tyrone. I think you over the past year or so, you may have been one of those who would have knelt in prayer on behalf of someone stricken with COVID-19. As we would know by now, after many prayers, we have still lost a lot of people. Can we still then, in an instance like that, Tyrone, say that our belief and our trust in God can address even dire physical ailments such as COVID-19?
If I pray for somebody and a person died from COVID, next person, I just go to the next person in line. And here is where a lot of persons misrepresent what God is all about. God made a statement to Adam and Eve: the day you eat, you shall die. And then he made two statements after they would have eaten. He said to Eve, in pain, that's physical pain and emotional pain. He said to Adam, by the sweat, in pain again. So sin brought about sickness, death, and pain. And there is nothing human being can do to reverse what God said. So when we pray for somebody who is sick or who is ill, and the person dies, it does not make God less potent in terms of saving a life. And so the belief that God will cure every sickness, that God will heal every sick person, that God will prevent every human being from dying, is presenting a God who will go against his word, because his word says, you shall die. So as soon as Adam and Eve ate, death came into being. And so every organ of the body begins to die. And for God to prevent every human being from dying is for God to go against himself. So my belief, I don't know about Randy and others, but my belief is in the God who can heal, is in the God who will choose to heal, is in the God who will choose to prevent death, is in the God who will choose to do what his soul desires him to do, and not necessarily what I want him to do. Because if it was a case where it is what we want God to do, then God would have been like a yo-yo, where everybody can just ask God, do this, do that, do that, do that, and then God just doing what everybody wants him to do. So it's about the God who believe in the God who has the power to do and who chooses to do, because he knows what his ultimate plan is, which is to kill death, to get rid of death and sin and sickness once and for all. And so in this basically COVID season where people are dying, you're praying people are dying. If you pray for someone to die, do not lose faith. Just go to the next person, because we do not know exactly what was God's intention. And finally, the last point I want to make is God is not basically about healing our bodies, our physical body. God is more concerned with our mental peace, having peace with him, so that even in our physical pain, we still have that peace. It is well with our soul. We still have that inner peace that we can endure the pain and the suffering, because we know that one of these days, this all will end and God will sit on the throne and we will live where we have no pain and sickness. So it's about what God decides and what God decides to do, and not basically what I want him to do. So my prayer, my prayer does not force God to do what God doesn't decide to do. My prayer is not transactional. It's a relational prayer. That whatever God decides, I'm fine with it. His will be done.
Right. Now the question though, we accept what you're saying there, but the question though is it's about addressing the physical. Like you said, God may not necessarily be interested in, it's more the mind and spirit. All right. So he would have given us a brain, a mind, he would have given us hands, right? And the means and the knowledge to say, here, so we have people telling us, if you do such and such, it may, not always, but it may keep you away from getting the COVID. All right. So he's given us that knowledge. Now, Randy, what's your take on what Brother Tyrone would have just said?
I agree with what Tyrone would have said. Jesus on the cross said, Father, if it be possible, let this cup pass for me, you know. But then he didn't stop there. He said, nevertheless, not my will, but thy will be done, you know. And Tyrone said also that if God was at our every beckon and call, so to speak, he would have been like a yo-yo. Taking into consideration that God's desires and his knowledge and all of these things is far superior to ours, you know. So in praying for someone who is physically ill, someone who would have contracted COVID or whatever, I am like Tyrone. I pray honestly for that person, you know what I mean? But in my prayer, I will say, God, not my will, but your will be done. Because ultimately, me praying for that person and the person dying from COVID still doesn't waver my faith, right? I am of the position that God knows best. It is up to him if he desires that person to be in the land of the living or not, for whatever purpose he wants them to be there, or if, because I mean, pen of inspiration tells us God will got to put some of us to sleep to save us. So who knows? At that point, I might be at the highest point of my spirituality, and God might put me to sleep to save me, or you know what I mean, or somebody that I'm praying for, right? So in my earnest prayer, I genuinely pray. Like if somebody asks me to pray because they have cancer or they have COVID, I genuinely pray for that healing. All right, but I also mention to God, not my will. You know, I mean, you see far more than I would see. You know far more than I know. All right, and whatever you choose for that individual, you know best. And so whatever is the outcome, all right, may your name still be glorified. So that's my position. That's my position.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Um, I'll come back to this shortly. We had Shel Summons asking a question earlier on, you know, more on the supernatural end. And she's saying, what are your views on the use of white lavender sprinkling on four corners to clean out your house? What's your view on that, Cleon?
Well, when I was younger, they used to make you wipe out the house with the white lavender and all of that, and I never had a good smell. I guess like me growing up, I was like the defiant individual when it came to these supernatural things. Like it just didn't. If it didn't make logical sense to me, it just used to get me upset. So I don't see what is the purpose behind using the lavender, and then they have this. But now I see people are making it modern now. People are saging their houses and burning incense and candles, scented candles. Well, I could deal with the scented candles because, you know, for romantic purposes or just for just some afternoons. You come home, you just light a scented candle and you have a cup of tea because you just want to, you know, de-stress. But I'm not sure what these lavenders and these crystals and all of these gymnastics that people so believe in. Mind you, there are people who really do believe that it works. But I don't think it has ever worked for me because if I was supposed to be rich from it, I'm still waiting.
All right. We have one final clip from Sister Noelline, and I'll play that.
Mommy
I got
Fifi,
you.
Mommy Fifi had a reputation as a healer. Let me
Yes.
tell you, doctors, lawyers, people in big government positions used to be trekking Buxton back down side to go to Mommy Fifi. If the men can't get erection, she got something for that. She said they got coal in the back. She mix up something, boil up something, and put a big syringe. And she got these big men bend over
Wow.
and she give them the syringe full of stuff. I tell
Right.
you, within minutes, they fly into this old latrine in the yard. And when you go into the yard, you see, well, what we used to call posy. You see
Right.
couple around by this latrine area. So I suppose them who couldn't wait for getting the latrine catch hold of one of those. But it was
Yes.
amazing to see how
Right.
people in high standing used
Right.
to go there. She
Right.
says
Because it
whenever,
worked. Yeah.
yes, whatever she used to boil up and put in this syringe and give them, it used to work. People used to go from all over the place to Mammy Fifi. She has a reputation, and she still has a reputation, even though she's dead, because her daughter is doing the job, or granddaughter is doing the job.
All right. Good whole Mama Fifi there. All right. Now we've sometimes used the term, when we're dealing with the unexplained and that whole realm, where we would say evil spirits. Now, when we say evil spirits, does it mean, Tyrone, that they are good spirits also?
Let me begin by saying that for the Christian, I don't think there should be anything that's unexplained,
Mm-hmm.
because the Word of God says that God has revealed the mysteries of His kingdom to those who are His. And so, as a Christian, I don't see it as the unexplained. I see that what God has explained to us, that these are spirits of devils going about working miracles. That's clear in Scripture.
Mm-hmm.
Good spirit. If there's evil, then by reasoning, there's good. Because once there's good, there's evil. If there was no evil, then what would have tested man's love for God? How would man's love for God would have been tested? It would have only been a one-dimensional thing.
Okay.
So the mere fact that they're evil spirits, yes, they are good spirits, and these spirits are basically what they call evil spirits are basically the angels would have been cast out of heaven with the devil, because and what I've observed is this: all that God has done, the devil is mimicking what God has done.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that God has done, he's mimicking it. The healing, from the healing to the miracle to everything else. And so they're angels who would have remained with God in heaven. They said two-thirds of them. That's what the scripture says. They would have had the good nature of God. They're operating on the good principles and the good nature of God. But those who came down with the devil, they are operating on the evil nature and the evil principles of their boss. And
So
so,
how do you know when one of the other would have healed you?
pardon me,
How do you know when one or the other would have healed you?
I believe in God, and so whatever healing comes to me, it comes from God. It can't come from the devil. I have no dealings with the devil whatsoever. And so whatever happens to me, whether it's healing or sickness and so on, I embrace it as being from God or of God, because as a child of God, He has control over my life. So, and He would not allow any evil being or evil spirits to bring healing. In fact, the evil spirits cannot bring healing. How are they bringing healing?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the other thing. So it is knowing who you are and whose you are. If you know that you're a child of God, then your healing comes from God. And if your healing comes from God, it will come in a way that God approves. It will come in a way that God sanctions, that God commands. All right. You can't go to you can't belong to God and go to a Obeah man and get healing and saying that it is of God, it's from God. When God spoke against that, you can't go to those who are into witchcraft and get healing. And the other thing is, when we go to God for healing, there is no side effects. There are no nothing God is asking you for, but to trust Him. But most of these other individuals that brings healing, the main thing they ask for is some aspect of blood, either the blood of a fowl or the blood of a goat or the blood of something. But they ask for blood that these evil spirits can drink. And again, that idea came from the very first sacrifice that God made in Genesis, when God sacrificed the lamb to cover Adam and Eve. So the devil now using that idea of sacrifice now, but he's taking it a different level where he's sacrificing human beings and he's calling for blood. And if you look at all of these things that are happening around, there's one common element. And the common element is that they need blood to drink. They want blood.
Okay. All right. Let's close tonight by looking at ourselves. Now, superstition. If we look at our day-to-day lives, I'll start with you, Cleon. Do you find that you have any form of superstitious act? Say, you may only like I heard someone once recently said when they're traveling, if they have to travel on a plane, they only travel on Tuesdays. Do you have a particular day that you would only travel? Do you have a particular shirt or shoe that you would wear for specific types of functions? Do you find that you have any superstitions that are a part of you?
They may be, but I'm unaware.
Mm.
That is that much I can say, but there's no traditional thing that I would have learned over the years that I hold fast to. Because, like, I think it was Tyrone who said people put horseshoe, and like I had mentioned a few shows before, where persons would say to put a glass of water over the door because there was a lead. So those are things that I would have seen, but me personally have never continued any of those things that I would have seen in my house as a teenager, young adults growing up. But if they are stuff that I do, I probably am unaware unless someone points that out to me and say, "This is what is it." Oh, this is a good thing with
Yeah,
Samantha.
Samantha is saying.
Sometimes the palm of your hand is scratching. I had believed it for a while, but then I said, this thing don't really work. So better scratch my hand, because if I forget the money, I will get the money. If I don't get the money, I just don't get the money. Or you go and put your hand and you're scratching some wood or something. Like two people, like in Trinidad, we usually say jinx. When two people say the thing same time, two persons say the same thing at the same time. So I guess some of the things are just because it is cultural in some essence, and it's not from a spiritual aspect. That would be it for me.
But Cleon, think of it, because I think you might agree that there's some, you use the word jinx just now, right? And I'm thinking that there's some people that you look at them, and when they're around you, it's like it's a bad vibe then, right? And there's some people when you see them, you say, "Oh, something wrong will happen now," right? You've never had that kind of experience.
I've had experiences where I say to myself, like, when I leave the house, I can either take two routes to get out. And most times I would say, no, not going this route to this street today, because some unknown, or rather you would say the Lord in the subconscious would have directed you, do not go this way, but take the other route. Then there are times when you're heavily pressed in your spirit that, no, this is the route I'm going to go, even though it is not the safest route. And that's just something with me. And there's one thing that I've learned when I'm walking in the nights, I don't look back. I don't know, for whatever reason. Doesn't matter how dark it is. I do not look back because I said I never left. I did not leave anything behind. So if there's one thing that I have as a tradition or something, it's probably not looking back
Don't
to
look back.
anything, because you're looking ahead.
Yeah,
I just don't look back. If I sense or feel something behind me, because my ears are trained in that way, that I am walking, I will know if someone is coming behind me to go faster. But
Right,
if
right,
I'm
right.
walking and looking back, I can't know if somebody is planning something ahead to take
Okay.
another route, because I'm
Okay.
concentrating on what is behind me, which has of no value in my opinion to me.
Okay. Randy, you've had any experience of anybody jinxing you?
Um, Let me start by saying I would have grown up in a Christian home from my grandmother from baby, so from a tender age, um, I had Christian teachings, and my faith would have been strengthened to somewhat from a tender age coming up. I never, I know there is evil, right, around, but I never, like you guys would have discussed last week on the panel and the other week before, that sometimes we allow the devil to come in by our belief and our and so on, some choices and things. I never give any credence to the power of evil over that of Christ. I always believe, yes, the devil is present, yes, there is evil, but there is a God, and God is all powerful. And that's always been my thing, my faith. I've never had any of these running with evil spirit, as to say. I know my brother and my mother and all of these things would say they see this. I've never seen this. People used to say that, oh, you get a wild spirit and your spirit cannot be um captured, and all of these things they used to tell me. But I am of the belief that because of my implicit faith and belief in God, that to me everything is, even though it may have some amount of power, it is not as powerful as God. And as long as I'm under his protection, then I cannot be touched. So that has been my belief all along. And so I always um go with that. I never allow I've never, like I said, I've never had any experience with these evil things and so on. My brother
Right,
and all
right.
of them will tell us, but I believe it's my belief in God that really causes me to, um, like I said, I'm fearless. I don't believe in these jinx, and I don't have any
So you don't
ritual
believe
and
in bad luck and
and no, I don't
nothing.
believe in them stuff. I remember that when I went to America the last time, I was getting a flight for Friday, and being a 7-day Adventist, I prayed and I said I don't want to fly on Friday. The Bible came to me again and pray that your flight may not be on the Sabbath and all of these things and so on. So, but I generally didn't want to fly on Friday night, or the Friday, because I would have gone. It would have pushed me into Sabbath, and I know what would have happened, all these things. And I generally pray about it. I said, Lord, I don't want to fly on a Friday night. And it so happened that I got a flight for the Monday, what I mean, and everything worked out well. I came back on a Sunday and all of these things. So I mean, I pray about things, and I allow God to work. I allow God to work. And whatever happens, I trust God that He is working all together for my good. So um that's just me. That's just me. That's just how I operate.
Right,
You know what I mean?
right,
And as I
right.
am much older now and much more knowledgeable, that position and that belief has been further strengthened. And so that's me in a nutshell there, as it pertains to those things. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Randy. All right. We're coming to the end of another evening at the Georgetown Tea House. I think we're gonna have to address that very subject you guys are touching on there, the whole thing about prayer, and how do we think that we get a response, and how does God respond to the prayer? Um, Tyrone Cleon was talking about, sometimes like something tell you something. Don't go along, in this direction. Take the other road today. Do you believe in that kind of thing? That sometimes, as some people would say, some people would actually say a voice in their head, but most would just say, they get a premonition. They just get this thing that say, maybe I shouldn't do this or maybe I shouldn't go there.
Let me just say this here. As a person who would have heard a voice from heaven literally, I can say that God does speak to people in every way possible. As one individual said, God speaks to us in a way that we hear him. Sometimes we don't hear the way, sometimes I will not hear the way Randy would hear.
Mm-hmm.
And so God speaks to me in the way that I will hear him. The other thing is, I don't believe in coincidence. And what some people might call superstition, others might call a coincidence. For example, if every time you scratch your hand, you get money. It could happen that God send the money, God provided money for you at that particular time, just when you scratch your hand. So to some it might be a superstition, to others might be coincidence. But for me, I don't believe in coincidence. Neither am I a superstitious person. There's another thing that you will hear, that when two pregnant women walking together side by side, they must have a stick in their back, something like that. And these are a superstition. So I believe in the God who ordered the steps of his people every day, and he works out his steps. The text says, a righteous man's steps are ordered by the Lord. And God is not a God of coincidence. God is a God who has the life of individuals planned out in detail already. And so whatever happens, whatever comes within my way, feel that it is in God's plan for me. So it's not a coincidence. Neither it is a superstition, but it is ordained and planned by God already. And I think what happened here, this whole idea of superstitious belief and so on, I think it came about because of a misunderstanding and misinterpretation and misrepresentation of what the soul is and what the spirit is. Because I believe that once we begin to see the soul as a separate entity, then it brings into play that the soul can leave the body. Once we see the spirit as a separate entity to human being, then we can see the spirit leaving people. And so that's, to me, that's where the old misconception has come. And so it brings into focus now the old idea of superstition and the spirit leaving the body, and you're seeing this and you're seeing that, when all that you're seeing is simply the devil's angels presenting themselves as angels of light or as human beings. And that's all that you're seeing. So for me, it's not coincidence. It is God working out his plan in detail, step by step, for me as a believer. And I must say this here. God has a plan for everybody. He also has a plan for the devil. And we know what his plan is already. His plan is that he's going to wipe out the devil sooner or later. So
All right.
everything is happening as God has planned it out. So nothing is coincidence.
All right.
You know,
Thank
if
you
I
so
can,
much.
if,
Go ahead. Go
yeah,
ahead, Randy.
yeah, yes, if I can add quickly, I believe, people talking about this, the hearing things and person telling us Cleon would have said his mindset to go here. And I believe it most of these things stems from your beliefs. You know what I mean? You strongly believe in God. And when your mind is telling you these things, is God speaking to you. Who you believe in is gonna talk to you. And you're gonna hear, right? The Bible says my sheep know my voice, knows the shepherd's voice. You understand me? I would always say a thing. If I go against my mind, um, oftentimes that is be wrong.
Mhm.
You know, and I believe it's stemmed from my belief. I really and genuinely believe in God, and I really trust God for things in my life. And sometimes if I go against my this inner man that's speaking to me, or as we would say, my mind, it's telling me, Randy, do this thing, do this thing, do this thing, and I'm doing it. And every time I go against it, and I don't listen, I often find myself in problems and all of these things. So But like I said, it stems from my belief, and I genuinely believe in God. And so whenever I hear um, some people something talking to me or prompting me or whatever, I believe is that of God. And of course, it has to be good thing. God don't lead you into evil or into evil doing. You know what I mean? So your
Right.
belief has a lot to do with this. And when we waver in our belief, in our faith, when we leave open creases and open avenues in our thoughts and thinking and beliefs, I think we can hear different voices. But when you have this firm belief, then you will know who is speaking to you, and you will hear. I believe you become so single-minded that you will know and hear and be able to act accordingly to what you're hearing.
And it
Okay.
has to do with your relationship with God. And I
Thank
always
With
say
you.
to people,
God.
there are three voices you'll hear: God's voice, the devil's voice, or your own voice. Because sometimes
All
we talk
right.
to ourselves and we tell ourselves that God is talking to us. And God, by the way, God speaks to everybody. He speaks to the Muslims, he
Mm-hmm.
speaks to the Hindus, he speaks to the Baha'i. He spoke to Balaam.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So he speaks to everybody.
All right. On that note, we're gonna say good night. Thank you first and foremost, gentlemen, for taking time out to join us at the tea house. To all of our viewers, thank you so much for being with us this evening. Please do join us again next week. We're going to be lightening things up a little next week. We're also going to be giving you guys an opportunity to win a few prizes. It's all coming up next week at the Georgetown Tea House. All right, so please tell a friend. All right, tell a friend. Tell them to come with their favorite cup of tea, their glass of water or coconut water, juice. All right, we will be back here next Monday at the Georgetown Tea House. Thank you all so much, and good night, and be well.
Good night, everybody.
Examine any profound event in the Bible or in the history of Christianity, and one is sure to recognize the consistently pivotal role of conversational interactions. We see this at play in Genesis, the first book, where through a series of conversations we witness the fall of our species and the expulsion from the Garden of Eden. The conversation between God and man, the conversation between man and woman, the conversation between the woman and the devil, and so on. At the Georgetown Tea House, we know the great importance and pivotal role that conversations often play in our lives.